Hey everyone, welcome back to the Fantasy Pros Football Podcast. I'm Bobby Sylvester, joined as always by Mike Tagliere, and my best friend is here today too. It's Dan Harris, host of the BettingPros Podcast, and also fantasy analyst for Fantasy Pros. Dan, I've really been looking forward to talking to you, man. How you doing?
I'm doing great, buddy. It's great to get the band back together. I feel like the last time we were on, we were doing our awards, and I was naming a lot of 80s movies that you had never heard of, so I feel like we've got to do a little better on this one.
Wow, that was the last show, wasn't it?
I think so. I mean, look, you guys are rolling, and I've been doing the leading off podcast for baseball. We've got the BettingPros NFL podcast, so I'm happy to squeeze a little time in to get back to doing what we love, maybe best of all.
Well, I hate to break up the band here, but I'm going solo, boys. I've decided to to be a one-man band. I'm going to go out on the road and see what I can do on my own. I'm totally kidding. That's not happening. I'm here. I am with the trio, the Three Stooges, if you will, and ready to talk some football.
Tags is just really offended, Dan, that I said that you were my best friend because
this best friend thing, it's gonna bring us all down. There's gonna be stories written about us about who is actually the best friend. I mean, I guess the one takeaway is that whoever is not the best friend, it's not me, because I am clearly the person who you are both fighting over to be best friends. So I'm going to just basically, I'll take that and, we'll flip a coin between you guys.
All right, guys, so here's the plan for today's show. We're going to be talking about some preseason takeaways just to prepare you for that big draft weekend. Then at the end, we're going to be doing a segment called Fantasy Fill in the Blank, and I love this one as well. Now, there's no news today, but before we get into the preseason takeaways, Tags and I really want you guys to win. Dan, I know you're sadistic since you're a Jets fan, so do you at least want the listeners to win?
Yes, kind of. I guess, maybe, not really, but you go ahead and do
it. so we've got all kinds of tools that I really do believe is going to help you guys win, perhaps even more than the advice in the podcast. And one of the best tools on our site is our Chichi Creator, where you can create rankings in a flash for whatever type of league you're in. I customize a brand new cheat sheet, I kid you not, for every single league I'm in, depending on the settings and keepers. And frankly, this used to be something that took me hours and hours to do until I joined Fantasy Pros and got my hands on this bad boy. Guys, you can use the Cheat Sheet Creator. It's easy to import any rankings from the web or a spreadsheet. Or listen to this. Dan, give me two experts you really respect and trust.
I mean, other than the two best friends that I'm talking to right now? All right, yeah. I'll give you two others. I really love Sean Kerner, and I love Justin Boone. I think he does great work at the Score.
Both those guys are always top 5 most accurate. Tags, why don't you give me two more, man?
Yeah, I mean, Jake Seeley, how can we not put him in there? And Andy Behrens.
All right, I'll throw Scott Pianowski and Jason Moore in the mix as well. So we gave you 6, add all 3 of us in. Then you've got your own consensus with 9 experts that I hope you guys like us. 9 experts that are going to help you guys win your league. Customization is easy, as I mentioned. Premium members can adjust rankings with a simple drag and drop interface, create player tiers, and import and edit player notes. And you can get the most out of your custom cheat sheet by exporting your rankings to Excel or using them in our draft simulator and draft assistant. Build a winning team using our cheat sheet creator at fantasypros.com/draftwizard. Again, that's fantasypros.com/draftwizard. All right, guys, so we're going to start at the running back position here and just share a couple guys each that we've maybe changed our mind on because we've seen something during the preseason. Dan, why don't you start us off?
All right, I'm going to go a little deeper probably than I think we were thinking. But for me, I feel like the guy who I wasn't really thinking about much before the preseason started, and now I'm definitely spending at least a late round pick on everyone, is Tony Pollard. And whether or not you've drafted Zeke, and I expect Zeke to sign, and I expect him to play in week 1, but we all expected Le'Veon Bell to play in week 1, and James Conner dragged his owners to the playoffs when he didn't. I'm not a huge handcuff guy per se, right? I don't think we always know who the handcuff is. I don't think it's always a guarantee that whoever that guy is going to get all the snaps, and I don't think it's always a guarantee that even if he does get the snaps, he's going to be that good. But I do think we know the answer to all of those questions for the Cowboys, and they're all good for Pollard. And so far in the preseason, look, Dak's played 31 snaps. Pollard has been in on all 31 snaps. So either the Cowboys aren't at all worried about Zeke, or Pollard is going to have a huge role if he gets the job, and he looks fantastic this preseason. He's averaging 5.6 yards per carry. He's forcing a ton of missed tackles, and remember, in college, he played a little receiver back in Memphis, so he'll be good out of the backfield kind of regardless. He's basically free in drafts. So for me, I bumped him up enough where I'm basically targeting him in every draft that I'm in, and it's part performance, but it's much more about kind of the situation that has developed as we still wait for Zeke to finally get on board.
So how early are we talking? 11th, 10th round even?
I think last night I had a draft, and I think it was the 11th. But at this point, look, I mean, you guys expect Zeke to sign, right? I'm not crazy. I mean, I still have Zeke.
I think it's more than likely that he plays at least 12 games.
I mean, if you're even thinking that, if you're even thinking, well, he's going to miss 4 games, then I mean, you got to bump Pollard up even more as far as I'm concerned. But, for me, probably I think 10th round is probably the highest. I don't think you need to go higher than that to get him, to be fair. If you did, but he's a guy who I want to have. Again, I was a guy, I drafted Bell a bunch last year because I really was not concerned whatsoever with it. But even where I didn't, Connor was essentially free in drafts, even right up until the end. I mean, I got him for nothing in an auction that I did the day before the season where I was debating between him and legitimately in a 2-quarterback league, Nathan Peterman, because we were legitimately, I flipped a coin between which one of those guys I was going to take, and I took Connor, and he obviously made a huge difference. So at this point, with the way he has looked and with the number of snaps that he has been in on when Dak has played, I think he's a guy who now is not just going to, if Zeke misses time, he's not just going to be the guy. Remember that horrible situation with Alfred Morris and Darren McFadden where we didn't know who it was going to be. I think at this point, it's going to be Pollard, and he probably will be the bell cow. And frankly, that's more upside than almost anybody else you're going to get past the 7th round.
Tags, they've been using him on every snap, and you can go back a month ago on this podcast, and we were talking about it. This is just a gimmick. They're trying to, convince Zeke that they've got somebody to replace him. He's just a 3rd down back, and it seems that we were wrong about that. At least that's what I was thinking. Now, Tags, how high up would you be willing to take Pollard at this point based on, James Conner was great last year, and everyone is going to be reaching to draft the next James Conner?
I'm not reaching for Pollard. I'm not doing it. And I'm still of the mindset that this would be somewhat of a timeshare. I think it would be more of like an Austin Eckler, Justin Jackson type situation where, Eckler is being drafted as around that RB 26 to RB 30 range. And that's fair. That's where I'd probably put Pollard if Zeke was out week 1, in terms of I don't think that he's going to walk into a 20 touch role. I don't think that's going to happen. I think you're looking at maybe a 13 to 16 touches per week. And that, that has value. Absolutely. But do I think he's the player that Zeke is? No. Zeke is one of the best running backs in the NFL. I think Alfred Morris would steal some carries. I think if they got into short yardage situations, maybe on the goal line, you'd see some Alfred Morris because he's been really good throughout his career in that role. So I'm not buying him. On the flip side, that was a question I received on Reddit earlier. I did an AMA, and someone asked me that exact question, and they said, what about Darwin Thompson? And he is someone that I would be willing to reach for. And that's because Andy Reid, he can talk about timeshare all he wants, but he's never employed that in his offenses. Even going back to his Philly days, he was never really a timeshare guy. So I think whoever's in that lead role there has much more value. It's been a plug-and-play RB1 every single time. Charkandrick West, Spencer Ware, Kareem Hunt, Damian Williams.
If Darwin Thompson is in that offense, he's going to be great, right? If he's the guy. But you agree, though, that, this is Damian Williams, right? He's going to be the guy. This is just, at this point, as good as Thompson has looked, Thompson's really just a handcuff at this point, don't you think?
Oh, correct. But that's the thing. If you want Damian Williams, okay, if you want him in the 3rd round, I'm fine with that. 2nd round, no. I am not touching him in the 2nd round. But if you get him in the 3rd round, you want him. That's fine. But I want you to reach for Darwin Thompson. And the reason I say that is because I am okay. There's a rare scenario where I feel like you have to handcuff a running back. I actually don't aim for handcuffs. I did a draft last night. I got Dalvin Cook and Alexander Mattison. I didn't aim for that to happen. It just kind of happened the way that my rankings fell. But that is one where I want you to aim. So if you spend a 3rd round pick on Damian Williams and you spend a 9th round, maybe even an 8th round on Darwin Thompson to ensure you get those two together, I'm okay paying that price, ensuring that I have an RB1 on my roster.
Yeah, and I think that it's going to be one of those two guys. It looks like Carlos Hyde is going to get cut, and if he's not, he's a distant 3rd. It's very clear that the 2 best running backs on the team are Williams and Thompson, and I would even say it's in the opposite order. Thompson looks like the better back to me. I just don't know if Williams can lose this job because anyone's going to look great in Andy Reid's offense. Now, maybe it's a situation where Williams gets 65% of the touches, Thompson gets 35%, and they realize, what are we doing, man? We've got the best player on the bench, and eventually he takes the job. So I agree. I want Thompson. I'm just looking at him 10th round, and if someone takes him before then, that's too early for me. I would go Thompson 10th, Pollard 11th, Justice Hill 12th, and I feel so good about my bench.
Here's my thing with that, okay? I don't disagree with anything that you're saying about Thompson whatsoever. He's incredibly, incredibly talented. I do think, frankly, that absent an injury to Damian Williams, that Williams is really going to be the guy, right? And I don't think you're saying anything different. I think Thompson's going to mix in and stuff like that. My point with Pollard is really, it's twofold. Number one, at this point, you may not need an injury. I get it. I expect Zeke to report, but he might not. We really don't know about what's going on. And right now, there are no impediments to him being there. And second, look, Alfred Morris stinks, okay? He's fine, but I really do not think... Look, I think that they would be willing to trust Pollard with more work than Tags I think you're giving them credit for. So I think if he got that starting job, I don't see him. I mean, yeah, sure, Morris will come in a little bit, but I think he would get a lot more work, and I think I'd bump him up, to probably, if we knew that Pollard right now, we know Zeke, let's say Zeke's out for the season, okay, and we don't hear anything else, I got to be honest, it's probably too high, but I think Pollard's probably in my top 20. I think that's where I'd put him. I feel comfortable right now, given what I've seen in the preseason, given how much work they're giving him, given how good he looks and how much I like his talent, that he would be an impact guy. So for me, I would reach for him at this point over Thompson late in the drafts just because of the situation until Zeke signs.
I think I'd take him as a top 12 running back if we knew Zeke was out for the full season. I just don't think that we can ever know that Zeke is out for a full season. Tags, you don't think Tony Pollard getting 80, 90% of the touches behind this Cowboys offensive line is an RB1?
Can we not literally derail the conversation completely and say that Ezekiel Elliott's not one of the best running backs in the NFL?
He is, but it doesn't matter. Everyone said the same thing about Le'Veon Bell, and James Conner was a top 5 running back.
This is not a plug and play offense though. It's not like the Cowboys have a top 10 offense. They're not. They're barely in the top 15 scoring offenses, and Zeke just happens to get it done year in, year out despite that. So Pittsburgh has always been a top 6 scoring offense. So it's the opportunity there. They are a one back system. And we've seen between Alfred Morris and Rod Smith, when Ezekiel Elliott was out before, those two shared that role.
And they were better than Zeke combined. They were more efficient than Ezekiel Elliott.
Oh God, combined. That's my point, is that Tony Pollard is not getting the 20 touches per game that Zeke gets.
He has in the preseason. That's all that we've seen. He's been the only running back on the field with the first team.
I will put money on this.
And you would have done the same thing with James Conner last year, and you would have been wrong.
No, I wouldn't have. I would have bet on James Conner, just like I would have bet on Kareem Hunt. I would have bet on those guys because I know the offenses they were part of. That's why Darwin Thompson I'm willing to bet on, because I would say he's a much better pick. If neither running back was there, let's pretend that Damian Williams and Ezekiel Elliott are out of the picture. They're gone for the year, okay? Which running back do you want? It's not the guy that's behind the Cowboys offensive line. It's not. I want Darwin Thompson.
Okay, let's just play that out for a second. And I don't want us to have to go crazy on this. I didn't mean to start a huge thing, but if we're going to say yes.
Look what you did, Dan.
I know I'm the worst person. This is why I only come on once a year. Okay, if Zeke is out for the season and Damian Williams is out for the season, and we knew both guys essentially are the quote-unquote starter, and we don't necessarily know their situation, I agree. I would take Thompson first. I love the system. I love his talent.
Yeah, it's not even close either.
Yes, but what you're saying, Tags, is you're basically suggesting we're you take Zeke out and you put Pollard in, and Pollard is Zeke. No, Zeke in the game right now is, at worst, top 3. I would have him as my number 1 running back. I mean,
he's the clear-cut RB1 pick. He's the 1-1 pick if he comes back.
Well, no, he's how as a talent. How would you rank Zeke? He would be a top 3 running back for sure.
Yeah, okay, sure.
I'm just saying, if you put Zeke into, let's say Zeke was not potentially holding out. Where did you have him ranked? I had him at number 1. Did you have him at number 1 when you thought he was going to play the full season?
I did.
Yes, okay. So we are not saying that, or I am not saying that Tony Pollard comes in and, oh, look, if Pollard's in, he's the number 1 running back. That's what I'm saying. I don't think he's replacing Zeke. I don't necessarily think he's as talented as Zeke, of course not. But I think given that situation, and I do think, frankly, and this is just, I think, a difference in how we view how this would shake out, I think they'd give him a lot more touches based on the preseason, based on how talented he is. He's not Alfred Morris. He's not, Rod Smith. He's not Darren McFadden. He's better, in my opinion, from what I've seen and what I've seen from him in college. So for me, I'm not saying he just replaces Zeke, but I'm saying a top 20 guy. Yeah, I think that he can get there. So I just want to make that clear. I'm not saying he's as good as Zeke or close to it. I just think that he would be in roughly the top 20 for me if I knew right now that Zeke was out for good.
I'm gonna make one more point on this before we have to move on, guys. But okay, Ezekiel Elliott scored 252 standard fantasy points last year. Even if Tony Pollard is 70 points less than that in this offense, he would still be a top 12 running back. Tag. 70 points is a humongous difference.
It is a humongous difference. There's a humongous talent gap, and there's going to be a humongous touch gap. I'm standing with this one. I am staying put. I am not willing to say that Tony Pollard is going. I honestly don't think that even if Zeke missed the entire year, I don't think Tony Pollard totals more than 220 touches.
All right, man. We'll see. We will see about that one. Hopefully Zeke just comes back and we all get the value.
I hope he doesn't, just so I can prove you guys wrong on this one. I feel I am
Tags is mad.
I have so much conviction on this one. It's not even funny.
Me too. I do too. Yeah.
Yeah, I really, to be clear, I was like, Tony Pollard is a riser. I like what I've seen. And suddenly it has devolved into best friend fighting. It's all right. We'll move on from this and we'll get past it.
So much drama.
All right, I'm going to give my first one here in just a moment, but first I want to tell you about Fantasy Draft, the only rake-free daily fantasy site in the business. They've partnered with Hooters to bring you the largest guaranteed rake-free contest lineup in the history of daily fantasy sports, including the $1 million Hooters kickoff. That's right, Fantasy Draft is hosting the first rake-free contest with a guaranteed prize pool of $1 million. Listen, as fantasy sites continue to raise rake, prize pools are being squeezed, making it harder for players like you to win. Whether you call it rake, commission, or management fee, the days of paying 10, 12, or even 15% or more of your entry fee to fantasy companies are over. No longer will you lose 30% of your bankroll to the house. Only on Fantasy Draft are 100% of entry fees paid out to contest winners, 100% of the time. To access all of Fantasy Draft's exclusive rake-free contests, including the Hooters $1 Million Kickoff, all you need to do is become a member. Sign up at FantasyDraft.com and use the promo code FantasyPros, all one word, and you'll get a free 7-day trial membership. That's FantasyDraft.com, promo code FantasyPros. Don't miss your shot at the incredible $1 Million rake-free contest, and it's a $100,000 top prize. All right, guys, my first one is really simple, and I know it's a small sample size, but all it takes is just one game to see what a guy looks like, and I was worried that Derrius Guice might not be the same guy when he came back, but he's electric. I was thinking Adrian Peterson's going to run away with his job. He's going to have it for 6 or 7 weeks before they slowly start to give it over to Guice. Guice is ready. I think this is happening sooner than later, guys.
He did look good. I mean, I think he gained basically 4 yards per carry. He had the touchdown called back. He did look good. What is the situation with Adrian Peterson, by the way? Have I missed it?
He ran for over 1,000 yards last year. That's the situation, is how do you put that guy on the bench?
No, and the team is terrible. It was good to see Guice basically play as much as he did, in week 3. So I'm certainly much more optimistic on it right now. But I mean, what's the upside right now with Guice in that offense?
Exactly. Compare it to like a Kenyon Drake. Like, where is Drake going? Like,
that was my next guy, by the way, just to be clear.
Yeah, even if Drake's healthy, like he's RB 28 range. That's where people are drafting him. So it's like, Guice, I mean, there's a timeshare there. Chris Thompson's going to steal passing down work. Adrian Peterson's going to be mixed in. Peterson's always been money on the goal line. Guice is more like a guy that it's like, I'm just happy to see him back on the field, because it's like you want to see him healthy, but everything that the Washington has done has suggested that it's going to be an ugly timeshare, and it's not a high-scoring offense, and Trent Williams is not coming back. It's just a bad team, man.
I definitely agree with all that. What I'm saying is where Derrius Guice is going right now in drafts, RB 32, I think he's going to exceed that.
I think that is a possibility, but that's around where I don't, let's just say I don't think the delta between what his upside is really is that great off of 32, right? If everything breaks right for him, given the presence of Peterson, given how bad that team is, given that they're going to be behind, I don't know. I don't see him really breaking into the top 24 running backs.
Right. I would take Miles Sanders over him.
You know who had a really crappy offense last year? The Cincinnati Bengals. Joe Mixon finished RB9. The Arizona Cardinals, David Johnson finished RB10. The Washington Redskins, Adrian Peterson finished RB16. If Derrius Guice is better than Adrian Peterson, he can finish better than RB16, guys.
Wait, hold on. How all of a sudden is Derrius Guice first off better than Adrian Peterson? And 2, you just mentioned like 2 of the biggest workhorses last year, and Joe Mixon and David Johnson. Like, those guys were like legitimate 3-down workhorses, where Derrius Guice is not going to be. That's my issue with it. It's like if we knew that Chris Thompson wasn't on the team, you could help convince me that Peterson is on the last legs of his career and Guice is on his way up. But we honestly have never, ever, ever seen Derrius Guice perform on the NFL field. Ever.
We never saw Saquon Barkley perform on an NFL field before. He was amazing last year.
But Saquon Barkley's actually really freaking good.
Derrius Guice was really freaking good. Everyone was drafting him in the 3rd round before his injury last year.
He was good, but he wasn't great. Like, he was like, Dan, can you back me up on this one? Can we be best friends on this one?
What I'm saying is, if he's better than Adrian Peterson, he can be a top 15 running back, because that's what Peterson was last year in the same offense.
Hold on, so you're going to draft him ahead of Sony Michel?
No, I'm not saying he is going to be. I'm saying he can be. That's his upside. You're saying what's his upside? It's not a top 24 guy. I'm saying, yeah, it is. It's a top 15 guy.
Top 24 is like, that's not... I want to say that that's not a hard feat to accomplish, just because it's like, we had guys like...
he's backtracking, Dan.
No, I'm saying like in terms of weekly upside, we're talking about like weekly. Like, so when I mention like RB1 or RB2, I mean like on a weekly basis, you could play them as such. I think Derrius Guice is going to be an RB3 most weeks. He'll post RB2 numbers at times. And if he stays healthy over the entire 16-game season, then yeah, he's probably going to finish as a top 24 running back, just because of the nature of the position. But it's just not a sexy pick for me. It's like in the later rounds, it's like you're looking for guys that could potentially help you win a fantasy championship, and I don't see Derrius Guice posting RB1 numbers very often, if at all.
I would agree with that. That's fine. All right, let's move on. Dan, why don't you give us another running back? Don't start a huge fight this time.
I'm going to really try hard not to.
If this is your first time listening to the podcast, this is absurd. This is not like any other episode we've ever had, but Tags is just so wrong about things today.
So hold on a second. So I think the reason is because we're recording later at night than we typically do. We typically record during the day, and then tonight it just happened. We had to record with scheduling issues. We had to record tonight, and recording at night just gets me all hyped up. Like I don't know.
I haven't eaten dinner yet. Have you guys?
I'm not going to be able to sleep is the problem, because that's why recording during the day works for me. I cannot sleep when I talk about football, because basically it just gets me going.
I'm a very controversial human being. It's fair that I've just come on and I've just got it started right off the bat with the best friend argument, and it's just gone downhill from there. All right.
By the way, I want to explain that really quick. So Dan and I always did fantasy baseball podcasts. And then Tags came along, and I'm always at church on Sundays and everything like that. So Dan records the podcast with Tags. Dan is the host, and then they became best friends. And so really, I'm just kind of jealous that Tags gets to hang out with Dan more often. That's what it comes down to.
It's true. Now, we all really like each other, but for right now, we're obviously just kind of frenemies going on right here, because we're bringing the heat. All right, I'm going to try to put some, hopefully we can all agree that, well, maybe not, frankly, but let's say this guy, for me, again, another kind of late rounder who's improved his stock over this preseason, and that's Justus Hill. I mean, I've really liked the way he has looked this preseason. He's had 80 snaps, 27 carries, 4 catches, 114 total yards with a touchdown. Just watching him on tape, he's incredibly elusive, and he's shown a little more power than I thought that he would have, given his size. And he's going to start as sort of the third down change of pace back, and it is a very, very crowded backfield. Of course, you've got Mark Ingram, you've got Gus Edwards, and right now Kenneth Dixon, although I don't know necessarily whether Dixon's going to make the team. So he could kind of be fourth on the depth chart. But if you look at the Ravens and you look at them for the last 3 years, right? Last year, the starting running back at the start of the year was Alex Collins. By the end of the year, it was Gus Edwards. 2 years ago, it was Terrence West, and then Alex Collins took it over. 3 years ago, it was Justin Forsett, and Terrence West took it over. So it's not as if the Ravens are one of these teams that are completely committed to getting the guy who they have right off the top to be their number one guy all season. And I like Mark Ingram, but he's a little long in the tooth for a running back. So I think Hill, given his sort of explosiveness, can make a dent if he gets the opportunity.
Everyone knows what I think about Justus Hill. Tags, why don't you give your comment?
I am much, much happier with Justus Hill than I am Tony Pollard. I just want to say, Justus Hill is someone that has shown his time at Oklahoma State, he was totaling tons of touches. Like there was one year where he had, I think it was over 300 touches. It might have been the cusp of that. Tony Pollard has never had 80 carries in a season, guys. Like, there's a reason Tony Pollard was not used like extensively at Memphis.
His legs are fresh, baby.
Oh, God. But I'm saying, Justus Hill, I think we all agree on this one, that Justus Hill is a man. I've compared his skill set to someone like Reggie Bush. He looked fantastic in the preseason. There's going to be some growing pains as a rookie, and like he's like he might be a little bit too big play, like looking for the big play, but at the same time, playing behind Mark Ingram, they might need someone like that, because Mark Ingram is like the boring guy that's going to pound it away, and then it's like Justus Hill's going to come in, and they're going to be looking for the bigger plays out of him, used a bit more in the receiving game. So I love Justus Hill.
And again, what I saw in the third preseason game, he lowered his shoulder and ran over a dude, and that kind of made me, just even more excited about the fact that, well, you know what, maybe he would have more than just the change of pace and sort of the catching out of the backfield, that he could have some power. To the extent they gave him a much larger role, he might be able to handle it.
You guys know who else was dependent on big plays last year and had a smaller role where they got, 7, 8 carries a game, maybe 5 or 6 targets? Tyreke Cohen, RB11 in PPR.
Mm-hmm.
I think Justus Hill can do that. And if Mark Ingram gets hurt, or if the Ravens just realize, hey, Mark Ingram sucks outside of Sean Payton's offense and Justus Hill's the man, Justus Hill could go nuts this year.
Yeah, well, they're going to run the ball so much, of course. So, any running back who's going to get a piece. Again, the biggest thing for me is it's crowded there. And we don't exactly know how it's going to break down after Ingram. But, for someone with upside, especially late, he's a guy who I wasn't that excited about coming into the preseason, but I'm pretty excited about now.
He's my number one must-draft guy. Tags, why don't you give us one more running back and we'll move on to wide receivers.
Justus Hill was my number 2 on my list, so that's why I said I was down with that. I'll mention one name. I don't need to talk about him too much because I don't want to screw up his name, but Dare Ogunbowale.
I think that is absolutely correct. Well done, Tags.
Wow.
I worked on that like a couple times, and I was hoping to say it right, but I'm sorry if I did not. But he was someone that got some reps with the first team this past week, so that makes me like he's on my radar. We don't need to talk too far in depth about him, but basically I think Bruce Arians has been looking for a running back that he could potentially lean on, and it's not to say that he's the guy, but he's someone that, is at least getting a shot with the ones, whereas Ronald Jones has reportedly disappointed. Peyton Barber is just a guy. So it's just a name to keep on your radar.
I 100% agree with that. By the way, he was sort of my honorable mention. And again, I didn't want to go too deep, but yeah, he has looked good. And again, the reps with the first team. And I don't think the offensive line there essentially is good enough to make a mediocre back really do anything. And so you know, right, like Ronald Jones and Peyton Barber probably are not going to succeed. So I'm going to just call him Dare because I don't want to mess up the last name.
Yep.
But, he is somebody who has a lot of upside.
Ogunbowale. I've got it down.
You've got it. You can just say it next time when I'm going to say it.
All right, guys, we're going to move on over to wide receiver in just a moment. But first, I want to tell you about BestFantasyFootballLeague.com. Guys, BestFantasyFootballLeague.com has been providing leagues for 19 years. They've got leagues that are 10, 12, and 14-team leagues, 6 different starting lineup options, not just one, and entry fees from $49.99 to $2,999. You can win a lot of money on BestFantasyFootballLeague.com. They've got PPR and non-PPR leagues, redraft leagues, dynasty leagues, best ball leagues, weekly in-season leagues. And I think the best thing about BestFantasyFootballLeague.com is that they want to make this a game of skill and not luck. In their season-long leagues, you play 2 games each week, one head-to-head matchup and one matchup against the league average score. That way, if you're the second highest team and you happen to go up against the highest scoring team, you go 1-1 in the week instead of 0-1. It allows the cream to rise to the top, and it's a truer reflection of how good a team really is. And same kind of thing. In the playoffs, you play 2 week matchups. So you play the same team back-to-back weeks, and the high-scoring team from the 2 weeks advances. Again, that's bestfantasyfootballleague.com, bestfantasyfootballleague.com. All right, Dan, start us off. Wide receiver, who do you have?
I feel like it's a little bit of a layup, but the guy who has certainly moved up the most in this preseason for me is Dede Westbrook. He's gotten a ton of great buzz in camp, and finally in week 3 we got to really see it. And Nick Foles threw 10 passes, 7 of them went to Westbrook. He had 4 catches for 29 yards and the touchdown. And he's been decent in his career, nothing too exciting. 4 catches for 46 yards per game throughout his career, but with Blake Bortles throwing to you, that's not really that terrible. And he kind of suits Foles pretty well, right? Foles likes to throw it short and in the middle of the field, but he also took a couple of deep shots with Westbrook in that game. John DeFilippo is a great offensive coordinator. He has been effusive in his praise for Westbrook, and really there's just not that much competition in the receiving corps at this point. I mean, Marquise Lee is just coming back, but DJ Chark suffered a concussion. Chris Conley is meh. So for me, Westbrook is the guy who I really was not buying into that much before the preseason started, and now I'm really buying into.
I talked a lot about Dede Westbrook our last show, so Bobby, what's your take on him?
I'm a Jags fan, and I don't think Nick Foles is very good. That's what it really comes down to for me. Dede Westbrook was the number 1 last year. He wasn't really all that great. I mean, Tags and I have compared this before, especially right after the signing of Nick Foles. Nick Foles has been the same player as Blake Bortles, minus the rushing yards, except for that one playoff run where he was really good. Now, he's had some big games here and there. So has Blake Bortles. I mean, Blake Bortles was the number 1 fantasy quarterback for a 5-week stretch at one point. I just think Nick Foles isn't especially a big upgrade for this offense. Now, the offensive line is better. That he doesn't really have any competition for targets. So, yeah, Westbrook's probably going to lead the team. 100-plus targets again this year. But I think his upside's probably around 800 yards, 7 or 8 touchdowns. That's solid, but that's a little bit higher than where he's being drafted, in my opinion.
All right, out of curiosity, where do you guys have him ranked? You can do half-point PPR, roughly, if you know off the top of your head.
I've got him wide receiver 39 right now, just in between Marquez Valdes-Scantling and Anthony Miller. I've been moving him up slowly, but I'm not willing to draft him as a wide receiver 3.
I moved him up a bit too, not crazy, and it's funny, I have him right there with MVS. That's like the conversation. I have Anthony Miller just ahead of him because I just think I think Westbrook's role is safer in terms of like the target share that he's going to get on that team, but I don't think the upside is worth passing on Anthony Miller for someone like that.
All right, so what's your number tags around?
40. He's at 43 right now.
Yeah, all right. So I actually didn't even realize. I was checking, and I kind of assumed I had him a little lower than this, but I'm at least, I practice what I preach. I have him at wide receiver 30 right now in half point.
Give us some names that you have him in front of.
You're not going to like it.
You're not going to like it.
You're not going to like it, who I have him in front of. Okay, so I'm just going to go down for my next guys, okay? Josh Gordon, Curtis Samuel, Marvin Jones. These are guys behind him.
I'll fight you on all 3 of those.
That's fine. I think you're going to be fighting me on probably 10, the next 10 of these guys at this point. But, I mean, this is the thing. I really am buying into this. I really like everything about this. I'm a big Fournette guy too, by the way. Fournette was also on the list of guys who have risen for me in the preseason, because I think I hate to say it, but I'm kind of buying this Jacksonville offense, at least, given where it was. And for me, I really do love DeFilippo. Like, I really am fond of him as a coordinator. I think he's really going to do good things. And, for me, I think Westbrook is just kind of in the perfect situation for what he can do. And again, he threw 10 times, 7 of them went to Westbrook. I think that's what you're going to see a lot. That's a crazy.
Jeff Swaim was hurt for that game.
That's fair. That's obviously fair. Jeff Swaim should be drafted, 25th overall, of course, if he were healthy. But yeah, for me, Westbrook, and I'm obviously bullish on him. So for me, he's the guy who, for the most part in the preseason, has been the biggest riser.
Dan, you having him at 30 might sound crazy to some of our listeners who haven't heard the opposite perspective on Dede Westbrook, but right now his ADP is wide receiver 33, ahead of Sammy Watkins, Christian Kirk, Marvin Jones, Corey Davis, Curtis Samuel, Larry Fitzgerald. So, Dan, you're not wild on that one, man. Tags and I are just fairly low on him.
We're just dumb.
All right, I like it. Conclusive.
Tags, why don't you give us a wide receiver, buddy?
All right. Well, it's really tough because it's like you want to try and figure out like the people that we're talking to, and it's like there's guys that are down the depth chart, like a Preston Williams. He's someone that really stood out to me throughout the preseason, and a guy that could be a player in this league, but he's not someone you should be drafting, so I don't want to spend a whole lot of time on him. Instead, I'm going to talk about Chris Godwin. Chris Godwin is a guy that has continually moved up my rankings, and it was like, we talked about the fact that, it's going to be tough for him to supplant Mike Evans or, to get into that top 20 territory, considering basically that Mike Evans is there. But looking at this team, knowing how horribly bad that defense is, legitimately terrible, like so bad that team's going to throw the ball 600 plus times, and basically they don't have a running back that's going to garner a lot of targets. OJ Howard, sure, but do you really think Brashad Perriman's going to get more than 50, 60 targets? I don't. And if they do, there's a real problem with Bruce Arians. And I don't think that's the case. Chris Godwin is playing that big slot role wide receiver. We saw him continually targeted when he was on the field with Jameis Winston. And I think that's going to just continue. It's so odd. Whatever the reason was, Jameis Winston just did not mesh well with Deshaun Jackson. And you even seen towards the end of last year, Chris Godwin started catching more steam as the year went on. He started playing more snaps. And it's not a coincidence that Deshaun Jackson was playing less snaps. He was injured, so they weren't playing him as much. Obviously, he's not on the team anymore. I just feel like there's a lot less pressure on Jameis when he doesn't feel like he has to, get that timing down with Deshaun Jackson. I know that sounds weird because Deshaun Jackson's really good at football, but Chris Godwin and Jameis Winston have a connection. And if Godwin's going to be playing that slot role, it's entirely possible that all of a sudden Mike Evans turns into a guy that may not see close to 140 targets, but even if he's around 120 targets, he could still do damage with those, whereas Chris Godwin might be in the same territory. So he's someone that's moved up my board. I have him at wide receiver 18 right now.
I've got him wide receiver 15 right now.
Woo.
Where do you have him, Dan?
18, exactly, as Tag says. And I completely agree. He's on a lot of people's breakout lists, but I've tried hard to kind of look for reasons to not have him there, right? Because he's so getting, more and more buzz, but I can't. I think everything you said, Tags, I completely agree with. So now we can go back. Everybody's calm. Everybody's happy. We all love him. I agree. I think that this is a perfect situation this year, and I think he's going to be a really, really solid wide receiver too.
Tags, I'm trying to figure out who you have at 15, 16, 17. I'm guessing Julian Edelman.
He's in there?
I've got Amari Cooper 16, so he's one of them. Who's the other one?
I have Cooper at 14. So Robert Woods and Cooper Kupp are the other two with Edelman.
Okay, I've got Robert Woods at 14. I'm missing somebody. You're high on somebody.
Brandon Cooks?
Brandon Cooks 11, man. I don't know. We're not going to figure this out on the show.
I have at 13, so yeah.
All right, here's my first one, guys. It's that Calvin Ridley is really freaking good. Every time I watch him, I'm just so impressed. And, if Julio Jones wasn't there, if anything happened to Julio Jones, I think we could be looking at a breakout superstar wide receiver. Ridley's one of the best route runners I have ever seen in film. And I know that Sanu's there as well, but last year Ridley only had 61% of the snaps. I would imagine Ridley passes up Sanu this year. He's getting 80% of the snaps. They're playing 13 games in the Dome. I think Ridley's going to be even better this season, and I think that I'm going to end up losing this bet that we made, Tags.
Oh, that's fair. I'm glad you come around. I said during the scouting process before Ridley was in the NFL that he reminded me of a Stephon Diggs, Antonio Brown type receiver. And I stood by that, even though people crapped on his combine scores. I really didn't mind that because he's a really good football player. So, you don't need to tell me. I'm the number one fan, Calvin Ridley.
At this point, I'm taking him over AJ Green, Kenny Galladay, And even, like I mentioned, Corey Davis. Well, which shouldn't be a surprise to anybody because Corey Davis is being drafted in like round 9.
Fun fact, guys. I was in a Superflex draft last night, 12-team league, and AJ Green, I got him middle to the end of the 9th round.
Wow.
He's falling a lot.
That's funny because I thought that maybe, unless I missed something today or yesterday or something, that they're still thinking, maybe it's optimistic, but they're still thinking he misses 3 weeks?
Week 3 is best case scenario right now.
For sure. You just got to make sure you don't draft Golden Tate if you draft AJ Green.
Right. Still, round 9 is great value there. Absolutely.
All right, Dan, why don't you give us one more wide receiver and then we'll move on over to tight end.
All right, I'm going to cheat a little bit because I'm going to kind of give 2 because it's the same situation, and it's Marquise Goodwin and Dante Pettis. It's basically the 49ers situation, one going up, one going down. And whether or not it was just a motivational tactic or anything with Pettis, he's now battling a groin injury because they played him into the 4th quarter of the preseason game. So he's clearly been falling from this preseason. But Goodwin is a guy, he was once a pretty enticing fantasy option. And he's played all 11 of Garoppolo's snaps in week 2. He played all 12 of the 49ers' first 12 plays in week 3. And he's played 8 games with Garoppolo in the past. He's got 36 catches for 492 yards and 2 touchdowns. That's not like blowing the roof off or anything, but you can certainly start a guy who's going to put up those numbers. I like him essentially as a kind of a late round guy who has a lot of upside. So for me, Marquise Goodwin is one of my big preseason movers up, and Pettis is one of them moving down.
Tags, did you have another one you wanted to add?
I want to say J.J. Arcega-Whiteside just because he's someone that may make Alshon Jeffrey disposable in terms of we've heard a lot of rumors about wide receivers being available for trade. There's like rumors about a trade that's possible. I don't know because they keep saying that it's a name that you wouldn't suspect on the market. And I think a lot of people, including myself, kind of suspect that it could be Alshon Jeffrey. But Arcega-Whiteside has been really good. He's looked fantastic, and we always knew he was the red zone threat. So he's kind of similar to Alshon Jeffrey in that aspect. Maybe not as complete of a wide receiver as Alshon Jeffrey, but someone who's definitely waiting in the wings. Where if Alshon comes down with one of those soft tissue injuries or they trade him, he's definitely someone that I'm looking to.
By the way, if you guys ever see J-Jaw on Twitter, someone's talking about that player, that's J.J. Arcega-Whiteside. They just don't want to say the whole name.
That's fair, I think.
I learned my lesson. I was like, who is this guy everyone's talking about? Oh, okay.
Also, I don't know. It just kind of came across. Deshaun Jackson broke his finger, and he's out for at least 3 weeks.
Is he? I thought they were saying he was going to be ready for week 1, no?
Tags, you saw the first update, and it said he's probably going to play week 1. Now they're saying he's been told it's a 3 to 4 week injury.
You see, I'm breaking news on this podcast right now, even though people aren't going to be listening to it for a while. Yeah, so if that, only kind of helps your take there.
Well, they're not trading Alshon now if they were going to before. All right, guys, let's go quarterback or tight end. So, Tags, you give me one quarterback or tight end, and then, Dan, you do the same.
I'm going to say Daniel Jones. For people that are refusing to change, their mind about him, there's so many people that were willing to bash him, legitimately just crush Daniel Jones and the Giants for drafting him and all that stuff. You shouldn't be one of them. Basically, if you watched him throughout this preseason, he looked fantastic. And I was on board saying that I didn't think he was as bad as everyone thought he was. I didn't know if the Giants needed to draft him where they did. They may have been able to wait to 17, but it all comes back to the idea is if you have someone that you believe is your franchise quarterback, you go and get him. So they did that. And yeah, was it right? Was it wrong? So far, it looks really good because Daniel Jones, I'm glad that they're not rushing him along and saying he's going to start right away, but he looks fantastic with not very good weapons around him.
I still think it was a bad call because they probably could have got him in the 2nd round.
I don't think that would have happened, but at 17, they had a second first-round pick, so they could have gotten him at 17, I think. But again, it's possible that that didn't happen. So I'm not going to fault them for taking a guy because if you believe he's your franchise quarterback, then you have to get him.
I think that's a good way to put it.
Out of curiosity, Tags, when would you expect him to take over the starting role this year?
That's a question that we talked about at an industry league last night, and I thought it would be closer to... I don't think Eli's going to have a long leash. I think, I remember when Eli was benched last time, where I don't think that's going to be the case anymore. He was benched for Geno Smith, guys. That's why people were pissed. That's why people felt like that they just basically threw Eli in the trash, and it was disrespectful to him. I don't think that's the case with Daniel Jones. I think the Giants fans are going to be hoping for it by the time that happens.
So does this make it more likely that you're going to draft a guy like Sterling Shepard or Evan Ingram?
I mean, it doesn't hurt, that's for sure. I have been grabbing a lot of Golden Tate. He's falling into like the 12th round sometimes, and I'm like, okay.
I'll take that, yeah.
I mean, if you have Golden Tate on your bench, you don't have any bye week issues over the first 4 weeks, so just grab him for your bench. Like, Golden Tate is going to be a fine wide receiver 3 when he comes back.
All right, Dan, who do you have at quarterback or tight end?
I'll go tight end just because Tags went with the quarterback. And this one isn't rocket science, but Mark Andrews is a guy who's been downgraded for me. I mean, I was pretty excited about him coming in because, of course, Baltimore, he's got a lot of talent, but really it's been the snap counts in this preseason. He's played just 18 of Lamar Jackson's 38 first-team snaps, and that's well behind Nick Boyle, who's played 31 of them, and it's tied with Hayden Hurst, who's also played 18 of Lamar Jackson's 38 snaps. So for me, again, I don't doubt his talent. I really sort of was excited about him, but at this point, given where he's been in the preseason, he's fallen slightly outside of my tight end 1 rankings. He's 13th for me, where I had him, I think pushing top 10 because I was really all in on him. So for me, again, nothing rocket science-y about this. It's much more about the snap count and the fact that he's not getting as much sort of play with the first team as I expected that he would.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I, at one point, moved Mark Andrews into my top 12 tight ends. I like the upside if they were to use him the way that we all imagined that they would, but it doesn't seem that that's the case. So I've got him at tight end 16 right now. Tags, are you drafting him as a sleeper, or do you prefer somebody like Jimmy Graham?
Yeah, I mean, I'm going to stream the position. I've gotten to the point now where it's like, instead of drafting one of those guys, like I drafted Delaney Walker in a league the other night, and it's like I won't hesitate to cut him if he's not doing anything, because like if you miss out on, I almost want to draw the line of David Njoku now, who I have at number 7. Like, I think Vance McDonald it's worrisome that his OC is talking like that. Jared Cook, the correlation between the targets between tight ends and running backs. Like, I know people are talking him up, but you're not going to take away targets from Alvin Kamara to feed Jared Cook. Austin Hooper's, he's fine, but I feel like these are streaming guys like Trey Burton, Jimmy Graham. I feel like they're all streamers. So depending on how your league handles the position, maybe, but I'm just probably streaming.
So 2 quick things on that, which I don't really disagree with any of it. Number 1 is that I kind of thought coming into the preseason that Andrews might be able to take the leap into just above that cut line, right? Like I thought that given the offense and given his talent, he might be able to get there. And for me, he's fallen down. The second thing I want to mention, because McDonald was another guy who I wanted to talk about, I agree that the comments by the offensive coordinator are nervous. Those are basically that he should not see an increase essentially in the snaps that he did last year, which was at 564. But if you look at the preseason, he was in on 19 of Roethlisberger's 20 snaps in week 3, and he took all 15 of the first team snaps in week 2. I don't want to draw too many conclusions because we'll go down the Tony Pollard rabbit hole with the first snaps, in the preseason game. But to me, I'm not sure whether or not I'm willing to completely discount him because of those comments. So I bumped him up a little bit. I think he would still be above that line of streaming right now for me, but just barely.
All right, guys, and I'll give my final one here in just a moment. But first, I wanted to tell you about HelloFresh. Guys, I absolutely love HelloFresh. You guys know me, I love food, but I really love good food. In the previous time that I had HelloFresh, I got this beef bulgogi, and it was amazing. And then when I got my new HelloFresh package, I opened it up, and you can see the recipes and everything that you're going to be cooking. And the very first one I saw was, again, bulgogi, and it was even better than the last time. You guys are going to love HelloFresh, too. HelloFresh makes conquering the kitchen a reality with deliciously simple recipes. Everything is fresh, and they send you these pre-measured ingredients and easy-to-follow 6-step pictured recipe cards that are delivered to your door each week in a special insulated box. You can spend less time meal planning and grocery shopping, so you can get that time back to do more of what you love. So get out of the recipe rut and start cooking outside of your comfort zone by discovering new, delicious, simple recipes. And if you guys want to get $80 off your first month of HelloFresh, go to HelloFresh.com/pros80 and enter the promo code PROS80. That's PROS 80. It's like receiving 8 meals for free. Again, for $80 off your first month of HelloFresh, that's $20 off each of your first 4 boxes. Go to HelloFresh.com/pros80 and enter promo code PROS80. So guys, over the last 6 weeks of the season, Patrick Mahomes was the number 3 fantasy quarterback. Deshaun Watson was number 2. Can either of you tell me who was number 1? Josh Allen. And you know what? He got a lot better. When I was watching his tape at the start of the season, he was a disaster. And then he got a lot better. And everyone was saying, this is a really smart kid. He's got great intangibles. He's going to get better in this league. He's got the skill set. And I just didn't really believe it. But as I watched the film during the year, he got better. And then this preseason, he looks like an entirely different quarterback. I'm not saying that he is Jared Goff, but do you remember Jared Goff's rookie year, how horrible he was? And then the second year he came in and he was just completely different. That's what it seems like to me with Josh Allen. And I think that Josh Allen, we're underselling his upside here. I think he can be a top 10 quarterback. Now, I'm not drafting him that way, but if I am drafting a quarterback for upside, we've mentioned Mitch Trubisky, Lamar Jackson, Kyler Murray. Those guys are going a little bit earlier. If you just want to wait, maybe we've got something in Josh Allen. He's going to run the ball for 400, 500, 600 yards.
The one thing I'll say about Allen is their starting schedule, against the Jets and the Giants and the Bengals. Buffalo might be able to essentially win those games, obviously. And so if they do, and I think he can kind of control the offense, but, last year the problem with him rushing is that they weren't really designed runs. He was just kind of running and scrambling, and I don't know whether or not he's going to be able to replicate that. I have him, I think, at 18 about, so I'm not that far off on it, right? I mean, that's a guy, he's right behind Brady for me. So he's somebody who certainly could do something, but I think taking the leap as the passer, I don't think he has the accuracy right now to really ever be able to kind of jump into the top 10.
His accuracy's been a lot better in the preseason. He hasn't been making big mistakes, and if he can be that type of football player with the rushing, Tags, you've compared him to Cam Newton before. I'm not saying that's his upside. He's that type of player. He had 631 rushing yards last year, and he only threw the ball 320 times. Look, I've got him QB 20, so I'm actually below you, Dan. I just think that he also has this kind of upside, and it's something that we shouldn't just brush away if he has a good week or two.
Well, any quarterback who can rush the ball like he can has the potential always to finish in the top 12. But for me, I don't feel like he's the type of guy who I would draft to think there could be a giant breakout. Like, for me, I feel like someone like Sam Darnold, I would have more faith in finishing, in the breakout-o-meter or whatever we would call it, would have even a higher potential than Allen, even though I rank Allen higher than Darnold, to be clear. But I think to the extent I was like, one of these guys is going to finish as a top 10 or top 8 QB, I think it would be a guy like Darnold for me over Allen.
Tex, what do you think about that, man?
I can't trust Josh Allen on a weekly basis. He's just too inaccurate of a quarterback. I know he's going to run, and I know that he's going to put up fantasy points. And is it possible he puts up top 10 numbers? He needs the Buffalo offense to be a lot better, basically, is what it comes down to. And he's in charge of that. He threw more interceptions. I think him and Josh Rosen, if I'm not mistaken, without looking, were the only quarterbacks in the NFL last year who threw more interceptions than touchdowns. With the way that the NFL game has trended, that's hard to do. It's like really freaking hard to do. And I know that they added some options in terms of like Cole Beasley, which whatever, and John Brown. I like John Brown. I really do. But I don't think that Josh Allen can hit the broadside of a barn still. I don't think you develop accuracy as you grow into the league. I think it's who you are. And I think they have to accent his strengths, and it's not throwing the ball. So basically, I think they need to come up with more design runs for him. And Dan's right. A lot of them were not design runs. He was just scrambling. So teams are going to get wiser to that. There's a lot of moving parts in the offensive line, but they did add a lot of parts. So would it surprise me? No, not really if he finishes a top 12 quarterback, but there's going to be so many bumps and bruises along the way. It's that he's strictly a streamer, and I like him better in best ball, because best ball leagues I could just draft him and not worry about when I have to start Josh Allen, because it's going to be difficult to figure out when he's going to have a good game and when it's going to be bad.
Hey guys, before we jump on over to the Fantasy Fill in the Blank segment, did you guys know that we're on YouTube now? You can check us out at youtube.com/fantasypros. Tags and I are both doing some live stream Q&As. We're going to be doing all kinds of stuff like that during the season as well. And we've got all kinds of cool videos, like the top 5 running backs to avoid video that I just did. And you can check that out again at youtube.com/fantasypros. And we're going to be doing a final mock draft live stream at 4 p.m. on Thursday for the Beat Tags Draft Contest. Again, that's youtube.com/fantasypros. And it can also be watched at fantasypros.com/draft contest. All right, guys, Fantasy Fill in the Blank, and here's how it's going to work. So we just asked people to write us questions, guys who are listeners to this show, and we're going to fill in the blanks for them. So here's the first one. It is from Jackpot on Twitter. The player who shouldn't be on the field, like Jamal Williams was last year, eating into Aaron Jones carries, and is destroying your fantasy studs value is blank. Tags, who do you have?
Well, that's easy. It's Kalen Ballage. So easy.
I'm going with Nick Boyle. You just mentioned Mark Andrews, and I think Mark Andrews would be, like I mentioned, really solid. Maybe a top 10 guy, maybe even higher. He's got a lot of upside, but Boyle's playing 50% of the snaps. Yeah,
he's been on the field more than Mark Andrews, and I want to say Hayden Hurst has been on the field with the starters more than Mark Andrews. So it's gonna be a messy timeshare at tight end, and it's not like there's a whole lot of targets to go around that in that Ravens offense.
I feel like this is too mean because I really don't hate him necessarily, but I would say Royce Freeman, essentially. Philip Lindsay could be, as we saw last year, somebody who really gets it done, even though he hasn't looked great this preseason. But, with Freeman there, they're both just going to eat into each other's carries. Neither one of them is going to be particularly valuable, I don't think.
This one's from Spencer on Twitter. He says the double-digit round running back I'll have the most shares of is blank. Tags?
Tony Pollard. Go for it, Tags.
Yeah, Darwin Thompson.
Okay, I'm going Justus Hill, obviously. Everyone knows that. You're going Pollard, Dan?
I'll take Pollard. I mean, it might be Hill, frankly. But
Give me all three, baby.
Yeah, let's take all three.
I like this one. This is something that we don't really think about when we're drafting, but, there's a lot of guys who aren't being drafted in any leagues who are going to help a ton, and some might win a league. Joe wants to know who the best waiver wire ad of the year is going to be.
Oh,
that is a tough one.
It's got to be a running back, right? Somebody gets hurt.
if I knew this, I'd be a millionaire.
Yeah.
Right.
I mean, just give me the guy that you think is the most likely or that you could see it happening.
Let's say Mike Davis.
Mike Davis of the Chicago Bears.
He's not being drafted.
Yeah.
In most leagues.
I'm thinking about Marlon Mack last year. Marlon Mack was drafted in pretty much every league, but by week 2, he was cut, and then he was a stud. He was owned in 15, 18% of leagues at one point. It could be someone along those lines that you just get impatient with, like Matt Breida or Jalen Samuels. I could see one of those guys doing it. Chase Edmonds.
Yeah, no, it's possible.
Yeah, I think, and again, I'm not too excited, but maybe Devin Singletary. I know it's crowded, and so it would take a lot, but frankly, Frank Gore is 1,000 years old, and LaShawn McCoy is like 998, and I think that rushing attack could go well. Yeldon's still there, whatever, but I think he's a guy, I really like his talent, so I think, to the extent he does get kind of that starting role without too much, if the backfield was less crowded, I think he could do some damage.
All right, Alex says blank will have 15-plus rushing touchdowns. I don't think anyone will, but if somebody did, Tags, who would it be?
Sony Michel.
Oh, that is a good one. Yep. I'll go with Chris Carson. I could see them getting down and running nonstop, pushing him in there.
I'm going to go Latavius Murray, guys. He had 12 touchdowns in 14 games with Oakland, and now he goes to the best running offense in the NFL. He's going to be the goal line back. I think that there's a chance that Latavius Murray gets in the end zone 15 times.
I mean, Alvin Kamara better die for that to happen.
They're saying they're going to use Latavius Murray in the goal line. You don't bring in the best goal line back in football and not give him the ball on the goal line. Mark Ingram had 12 touchdowns in 2017, man.
Oh, I know, but Kamara's still really good too. It's not like you're gonna say.
Yeah, he's really good. Kamara can be really good, and Murray can still get a dozen touchdowns.
Yeah, I'm not going to disagree with you in that. I mean, it's possible. 15 is a lot. I think you need to be a full-time starter.
Yeah. I mean, if it's got to be someone like Zeke, right?
I'm saying Sony Michel because he doesn't even have to be heavily involved in the passing game for that to happen. 15 touchdowns without any Gronk on the goal line. I could see it.
I really like the Carson call, frankly. I'm shooting my own horn. But I think
I'm kind of right.
Right? I mean, that one, I assume they hate passing anyway. Schottenheimer doesn't want to do any of that. So I think they'll do that.
I love this one from Alex Kennedy. He's a writer for Hoops Hype if you're a basketball fan. The current wide receiver 2 who could end the season as his team's wide receiver number 1 is blank.
Go ahead, Dan.
I mean, look, I don't really think it's going to happen, but Chris Godwin, he really is somebody who can have a dominant season if everything kind of breaks right. So for me, he's right in that wide receiver 2 range. I love Mike Evans, but I can see a path to both of them staying healthy and Godwin having the better season. It's not a likely path, but it's possible.
I'm down with that one because
I've got a couple, man. So Tags, you go first, and then I'll have to figure out who I'm using.
I wouldn't dare say Calvin Ridley because Julio Jones is the GOAT.
Yeah, exactly.
Mike Williams I wouldn't say because Keenan Allen's still really good at football.
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, I think the Godwin would be my call for sure. That's where I'm going to go with this one. I think Godwin makes all the sense in the world.
I'm going Curtis Samuel over DJ Moore or Marvin Jones over Kenny Galladay. But the one I want to pick as my favorite is Anthony Miller over Allen Robinson. I think that is entirely possible. Allen Robinson's really good, but Anthony Miller, I think he could be a wide receiver 1 in this league. Guys, I don't know if it'll happen this year, but I think he's got that kind of upside.
I love Miller's talent.
So good. Can I say Stephon Diggs over Adam Thielen? Is that?
Yeah, I was thinking that one too. That was such cheating, but yes. What about Robert Woods or Brandon Cooks over the other one, whichever one is tough?
Or Cooper Kupp. Come on, guys. He was the wide receiver 1 when he went out.
Yep. Well, if they're running more 12 personnel, he's coming off the field.
All right, this one's from Wide Awake Pride. The team with the highest probability of having 2 top 10 wide receivers this year is blank.
It's got to be the Vikings.
Oh, man, the Vikings definitely would be the ones because, I mean, we have 2 receivers ranked in the top 12 right now. I think it's possible the Falcons do. I mean, if Ridley takes that next step. like that he would be in that conversation. The Rams are a team that you could see both Brandon Cooks and Robert Woods or Cooper Kupp getting in there. You could see Tampa Bay with Mike Evans and Chris Godwin. There's potential that they both sneak into the top 12.
Maybe Keenan Allen and Mike Williams gets 13 touchdowns.
If Mike Williams gets 13 touchdowns, I don't know if Keenan Allen gets there, to be honest with you. But because I just don't think that team is going to throw a whole lot. So you want to look for teams that are going to throw a lot, and the Chargers defense is pretty good.
Did it say wide receivers or receivers? Because then I'm going to go Tyreke Hill and Travis Kelce. Kelce would be a top 12 wide receiver if he was a wide receiver.
It feels like cheating for sure, but yes.
That's definitely cheating. We could just put Alvin Kamara in that conversation then, right?
Yeah, for real. All right, Jesse says, this year's biggest fantasy disappointment will be blank.
Biggest? I mean, I think we have to go big or go home, so I'm going to say Le'Veon Bell. Because, like, if I'm not going to tell you that you're going to be disappointed by drafting Robbie Anderson because you're drafting him with, like, what, a 7th-round pick? I don't want to say that. He's not someone I'm drafting. I think he's going to be a bust in relation to what people think. But I'm going to say Le'Veon Bell just because that's such an important pick that you cannot miss on. And it's not to say you're going to miss because it's like, he'll probably finish as a top 12 running back, even if if he stays in the field. But I think you'll get to the end of the year and saying, who do you regret drafting? And they're going to say Le'Veon Bell.
Yeah, just like they did with David Johnson last year, who finished in the top 12.
Like, I had a chance to get these studs, and I passed on them for Le'Veon Bell.
Yeah, that's a good one. I'll go a little lower just because it's hard for me to see too many guys up top. Bell's a great pick. I'll go a little lower, and I'll go Kerryon Johnson.
That's fair.
Me too.
I'm a little worried about the C.J. Henderson thing, guys. I'm not going to lie. I don't like the way things have been looking in the preseason. I don't trust Matt Patricia to kind of just give him the workload that I think he needs, and he's still being drafted, up top as a borderline second rounder, I think. So, for him, I could see him really disappointing this year.
I'm going to go Will Fuller. I think everybody probably saw that coming. I would have said Tyler Lockett before everybody else on the depth chart got hurt. So for me, it's Will Fuller. He's coming off the ACL. He left practice a couple days ago, and I'm just not so sure that he's going to be the same player pre-ACL unless he takes the right amount of time off, and it seems like Houston's not going to let that happen. All right, this one's from Brent. He says, blank is someone I want 0 shares of that's top 20 ADP at his position. I'll start us off. I'm going TJ Hawkinson.
Oh, geez, that's cheating. That is so cheat. That is like the biggest cheat right there.
Where is he going? Because he was going 12 a couple weeks ago.
I'm going to say Galladay.
Yeah.
Because I already said Le'Veon Bell. I'm not going to have any shares, but
I would take Kenny Galladay if he dropped far enough. If TJ Hawkinson dropped to the 18th round, I still wouldn't take him. He's going tight end 13 right now.
I might take Hawkinson over Mark Andrews, and I'm not kidding.
Yeah, I don't have them that far apart, frankly. I mean, I don't want to get into this. It's fine. Everyone's fine. But, yeah. For me, it'd be Derrick Henry. Again, forget about the injury. It's 4 games. It's 4 games of dominant production and an entire season's worth of nothing. So I'm not really going anywhere near him.
I was going to say Kerryon Johnson. Derrick Henry's a really good one as well. Joe Mixon might be in the conversation for me, although if he dropped far enough, I would probably take him. I'm going to go with Amari Cooper, though, since TJ Hawkinson was cheating. I'm just really scared off by this plantar fasciitis issue. Or whatever it is they're calling it. Whatever it is that made him really bad when he's had it the previous 2 years he's had it.
I mean, he did have 1,000 yards his rookie season, if that's when he was saying he had it. So, I mean, he wasn't terrible. But, yeah, I definitely dropped Amari Cooper down like 4 wide receiver spots when that happened.
Yeah, he was wide receiver 25, so I guess that's not bad, but it's way behind where he's being drafted.
For a rookie wide receiver, that's impressive.
All right, guys, I got 2 more, and I came up with these 2. Among players drafted outside the first round, blank is most likely to lead the league in VBD. So those of you who don't know, VBD is value-based drafting. It's value over replacement. So the replacement level for a quarterback is QB 13. For a running back, it's running back 25. Wide receiver 37, and so forth. So who do you guys have?
I mean, should I stick with my brand here that I've been doing?
Aaron Jones?
Well, no, I mean, Aaron Jones could definitely be the guy, but I mean, Odell Beckham could be the guy too, because it's based.
Is he being drafted outside the top 12?
He is. He's 13 right now.
Oh yeah, that's a great call. That's cheating though. Pick another one.
Like I mentioned on yesterday's show, is that there's record-breaking potential there. But if you wanted me to go down, I'd say that Aaron Jones is a guy. But the thing is, when you're talking about VBD, it's an even playing field. So therefore, it's like value over replacement player. So in terms of VBD, like they're on an even playing field. So I think Odell Beckham has a better chance of finishing as like the number 1 fantasy player.
I'm going to go Travis Kelce, guys. He wasn't too far behind last year, and I feel like he might separate himself from the pack this time along as Zach Ertz loses some targets, as the Eagles have been telling us they're going to do. George Kittle's going up with Jimmy Garoppolo, who doesn't throw the ball to tight ends anywhere near as much as Nick Mullins did. I think Travis Kelce could really separate himself and have a Gronk-like season.
Hey, guys, I want us to stop there because, I think it's really important. I mentioned it on yesterday's show, but we didn't talk about it very much because it's kind of like, haha, but can we imagine a situation where it's we get to week 3, week 4, and Sammy Watkins is a top 10 receiver, and people, and do you just think about it, literally close your eyes and imagine it and say, if this happens, can you look back and say, how the hell did we not see this? Watkins was a very talented receiver when healthy. He's playing for Patrick Mahomes. The Chiefs defense is terrible. Everything that we're pointing out about guys like Chris Godwin and expecting a lot of pass attempts, talking about the top 10 wide receivers from the same team. Sammy Watkins is going as the 35th wide receiver. Are we overlooking that, or is that just me being wishful thinking?
I think it's possible. You look back in Buffalo, when Tyrod Taylor was throwing the ball. He had a 6-game stretch there. You prorate it to a full season. 93 receptions, 1,800 yards, 16 touchdowns. He can ball out. It just depends on whether or not the Chiefs are going to give him the targets to do that and if his health allows him. I'm not saying he can't be an 1,800-yard receiver. I'm just saying there was a stretch in time where he was performing like a superstar for a pretty long stretch.
So basically in the games that he didn't leave early because of injury, there were 2 games where he left because of injury. If you remove those games, he averaged more targets per game than Tyreke Hill.
What?
Yeah. Tyreke Hill.
What?
Yeah, Tyreke Hill did not get very many targets. That's the thing. He's just stupid efficient. Tyreke Hill is ridiculous. And I've given up the fact of saying that he's going to regress because he's stupid good. But Sammy Watkins is really good at football too. And if he's getting targets from Patrick Mahomes, who is widely considered the best quarterback in football right now.
Yeah. So you're saying Sammy Watkins, VBD1? I'm messing.
No, I wanted to bring this up because I know that a lot of people have drafts, and I actually drafted Sammy Watkins last night as the 37th wide receiver off the board or something like that, and I felt pretty damn good about it. And I was like, is he just one of those players? I always try and look back. When the season starts, we always have those oh crap moments where you're like, how did we miss this? And I think Sammy Watkins could be one of those players.
So I think I could see a path to it, but I can't see us looking back and being like, man, we really should have seen Sammy Watkins coming. I mean, I get what you're saying, frankly, and it's a great point about how many targets he would have when he was healthy. But, given his health and, history, given the fact that there are 2 premier pass catchers on that team and a running back, whoever it's going to be, who's going to, get targets, be heavily involved. It's really difficult to see that happening, but it's not impossible. It's just much more of I can't see any scenario where we go, man, we really should have seen this Sammy Watkins, being the top wide receiver on the board coming. But it is an interesting thought, and I also am a fan of his and have been for a long time. So I hope you're right, Tex, but I don't think we'll regret it.
What's his upside if Tyreke Hill or Travis Kelce gets hurt?
Well, we experienced that, right? We had people drafting him as a top 18 wide receiver when Tyreke Hill was expected to be suspended for forever. So yeah, I mean, that's where you'd put him. And I would argue that he may have been higher. I was unwilling because I always felt like Tyreke Hill was going to play. It was just a matter of how many games he was going to be suspended. So if Tyreke Hill did miss time or if he was gone, whatever the case is, yes, he would rank in my top 18 wide receivers.
Also, I don't want to belabor this or anything, but it is something to keep in mind when you're thinking about Watkins. Hill is not completely out of the woods with the suspension. I don't expect him to be suspended at this point, but when you read,
if any further evidence comes up,
correct, they've specifically left the door open, and that is because in the past with Ray Rice, and Kareem Hunt, evidence has a way of coming out sometimes, whether it's TMZ or something like that. So it's possible. Remember, the court proceedings were sealed, so there is the remote possibility that something could somehow get out. In one way or another, and that Watkins could be vaulted. So that's enough when you're on draft day and you're kind of flipping a coin to lean Watkins' way over the other option.
I feel so much better about the Sammy Watkins pick now, guys.
That's a good call.
Yeah, we just talked about it a lot, and I feel good.
Wide receiver 1.
So Dan, you haven't given us your guy yet. Is it Tony Pollard?
Man, I got lost.
Tony.
Yeah, I assume that Julio is outside the first round, right?
No, his ADP right now is 14.
Okay, great.
But that's cheating. You can't use Julio. I can't use Kelce. Let's just not use anyone in the second round.
We all have already. I mean, this is cheating.
I went Aaron Jones as my backup.
Okay, my backup's Melvin Gordon, which is also kind of cheating.
All of you guys, this is just full-on cheating. I dislike everything about that. Okay, how about Rodgers?
That's a good call. He's done it before. He's been VBD number 1 before.
All right. I love Rodgers. I'm hopeful for a big season this year. I don't know what LaFleur's offense is gonna look like, but necessarily it is going to be better than it was from Mike McCarthy. So I'll go with Rodgers.
All right, guys. Final one. Josh Gordon plays blank number of games this year.
That's a good one.
I'm gonna say 13.
I will go 9.
I think I'm closer to Dan. I'm going to go with 10. I think that's the most likely scenario. Now, there's obviously a chance that he plays 16. If he plays 16, if you knew Josh Gordon was playing 16 tags, where would you rank him?
If I knew he was playing 16 games?
Yeah.
I talked about this actually last night. It was funny because we were like, basically, if you can get 14, if you knew you were getting 14 games out of him, you draft him over guys like Mike Williams,
Robert Woods, Chris Godwin.
Yeah, I mean, if I knew he was going to play 18 games, I would put him up.
18 games? That would be cheating.
He's actually going to play 18 games if he plays all 16 because they're going to make the playoffs again because they play in the worst division of football. But I would put him at wide receiver 19, maybe 18 or 19.
Oh my God, 19 is. I'm looking at my rankings. I legitimately 19 is exactly right behind for me. Godwin. He would be right behind there because he'd be great, but there'd be enough of a. We haven't seen it enough. Even if we knew he was going to play, we just haven't seen it quite enough. So 19 for me as well.
I disagree. I've got him a lot higher than that. I mean, he played 8 games, over 50% of the snaps for the Patriots, and he had more yards in that time than DeAndre Hopkins and Michael Thomas. He's really dang good at football. And you know what? If he doesn't get suspended, he's sober. And we could see a much better version of Josh Gordon than we even saw last year. I draft him over Robert Woods, Chris Godwin, Amari Cooper, Mike Williams, Alshon Jeffrey, Cooper Kupp, Julian Edelman. I'd draft him in the top 15 wide receivers.
Can I just say that some people might be better when they're not sober? Is that possible to say? Like I'm talking serious right now. Like, think about it. Like your favorite music acts and stuff like that. Like a lot of people think that when people are on drugs, they just perform better. And Josh Gordon practically almost broke records while he was like not sober. So is it possible that he was just a better player that way? I mean, that's a real question.
I think it's certainly something where it's possible. We have no idea really what the impact was. And I feel like, Tags, you brought that up last year, kind of when he came in and everything like that. For me, I wish one of the fill-in-the-blanks had been who is the hardest player that you have had to rank.
That's a good one.
Right?
Yeah.
Because for me, it would be Gordon.
Yeah.
Because I don't know I think I have him at 31st, and I know no matter what, that's not correct.
Right. It's going to either like be like terribly wrong or on one side or the other.
Right, exactly. And I've struggled with it. Because there's really no reason for us to be confident that he's going to be able to play the entire season, but the upside is really there. And Bobby, you kind of said it yourself. I wouldn't go that high, but their upside is that high. So for me, he is the guy who I've actually struggled the most to rank this offseason.
Yeah, 2013, he had 87 receptions, 1,646 yards, 9 touchdowns in 14 games.
With Brandon Weeden?
Oh man, he was absolutely amazing. Hardest guy for me to rank so far this year is probably Lamar Jackson. I just can't figure out if he's going to run the ball, 3,000 times, or if they're really going to cut down on that and just pass the ball 400 times again.
Wait, can we just say quarterbacks in general? Because seriously, like once I get outside like the top 8 quarterbacks, I'm throwing my hands in the air, because if I raise someone, that means I'm lowering someone else down the board, and I hate doing it. I really just do.
I actually hate giving answers to where do you have this quarterback ranked, because it's like a
trap, right? Because the difference between QB 9 and QB 18 is like five points.
I have him 16, but he's 1 point away from being QB 8.
Yeah. And that's what I'm saying is like I almost let my league mates decide who I'm gonna have as my quarterback, because it's like, go ahead and draft your quarterbacks that you want, and whoever you guys leave, I'll take.
Correct.
Yep.
That's right.
All right, guys, that's all for today's show, and I think it's safe to say that at one point we weren't really friends during this, but we're all friends again. It's a good way to end it.
Yeah, we brought it back. Way to save it, guys. I got worried there for a minute, but we're good now.
All right, and I want to thank the sponsors of today's show, HelloFresh, where you can get $80 off your first month of HelloFresh by going to HelloFresh.com/pros80 and enter the promo code PROS80. And also BestFantasyFootballLeague.com, where they try to take the luck out and make it a game of skill again. Check out BestFantasyFootballLeague.com. And also Fantasy Draft, where they've got the first $1 million rake-free contest. Get your free 7-day trial membership at FantasyDraft.com and use the promo code FantasyPros. Don't forget to check out our cheat sheet creator at fantasypros.com/draftwizard. And remember that we're on YouTube at youtube.com/fantasypros, where we're doing that Beat Tags draft contest. at fantasypros.com/draft contest. For Dan Harris and Mike Tagliere, I'm Bobby Sylvester. Thanks for listening and enjoy your football.